gonna say good afternoon to everyone. My name is Ronnie Carrasquillo. I am proud to say that I am an alumni of the Illinois Prison Project's Ambassadorship Program. Every new ambassador reflects IPP's role in uplifting future leaders and voices in this fight. It is crucial that leaders in the fight against mass incarceration comes from people who have lived that experience. This month, this Lunch and Learn right now examines Illinois Prison Project's Ambassador Fellowship Program. It's an 8-month training program where formerly incarcerated people transform their lived experiences with the carceral system into a narrative that confronts misconceptions of incarceration. And my personal stories about being released from prison after 47 years of incarceration. At that point, I was blessed to be accepted to join in the program called Ambassadorship, which IPP offers. And the purpose of this program today, of this Lunch and Learn, is to tell the story of how the program equipped me with purpose-driven skills to tell my story with more impact. I want to share how this program demonstrates one of its values, that people are more than their worst mistake. I'm honored to testify what is possible when people like me, like our guests, are given proper training and opportunities to grow, lead, and be heard. Let us hear from our guests of their journey through the ambassadorship program. So I want to introduce, of course, we have Caitlin Faust, who works at IPP, but we have our ambassadors, Byron and Fatima. So one of you want to go first, tell a little bit, a couple minutes of, who you are, what you're doing, and we'll go from there into the questions, the hardcore.
My name is Fatima Montero. I served as an ambassador last year's cohort, and I was surprised at the cohort. I didn't know what I was walking into, but I left being able to tell my story, not tell my story in a way where I am ashamed of it. I learned to tell my story with power and vulnerability also, because I feel like vulnerability is power also. So I feel like those were really brought together for me. Currently, I am a campaign strategist at the Fines and Fees Justice Center, which I feel like the IPP Ambassador Program truly helped me get that role, because I was able to tell my story in the interview in a different way than I had ever been able to do before. So yeah, I feel like the two coincide for me. I feel like they go hand in hand, and excited to be here. I'll pass it to Byron.
My name is Byron Merriweather, and I've done 21 years of a 70-year sentence when I was sentenced to as a juvenile. Since I've been home, of course, I joined the ambassadorship with IPP, which has helped me a lot to gain the confidence to speak about my past mistakes. As Fatima said, I was definitely ashamed, and I always thought about what other people would think about me if they found out what I did. But IPP helped me realize that I should take my experience and bring it out in a positive way. So now I have the confidence, to share my story and to share my voice and things I experienced. And right now, I moved on. I'm an apprentice with Restorative Justice, and I continue to try to learn new ways and tools to help fight the injustice of mass incarceration.
I'm Caitlin Faust. I'm the Assistant Director of the Education Department here at IPP. I am here today to speak a bit about how IPP built the Ambassador Program. When I was brought on to the education team, I was first in the program manager position, and this was the very first task that was sort of put on my plate, was to start conceptualizing what this fellowship program would look like. So I've been there from the rough starts to as it is now, and so I'm hoping I could provide a little bit of for people that want to continue this model in their programs, or want to sort of emulate the magic that IPP has got going here. I'm here to answer those types of questions today.
So no, the first question is, we can answer, and it says, why is it important for people closest to a problem to be included in a conversation about solutions? So you want to go ladies first under that theory, and then we'll go from there. Byron's a gentleman, and no disrespect. So Fatima, let's go.
I think for me, why it's important for people that have been through it to be tied to the solution in conversations about the solution is because I hate to make it so black and white, but it's just like you either get it or you don't. And that's just one of those things. The people that have been through it get it. If you haven't been through it, you can learn about it, you can research it, you can be dedicated to it. And I respect everybody that is and the people that haven't been touched by the system, but that are still advocates and involved. But there is a certain level of lived experience that is just needed when conversations are happening about solutions. If people that haven't been incarcerated are talking about things that are happening inside IDOC, I don't know, it just doesn't, I don't know, like it doesn't really fit all the time. I feel like our voices are necessary, and I feel like being able to do the program and being able to do the ambassadorship really showed me that, because I would always think like, why my story doesn't matter, like, you know what I mean, like I committed a crime, I was incarcerated for it, and I live to tell the story. Like I didn't think of it as power or useful in any way until the program, where I was like, okay, wait, my story can help to shape a different narrative about individuals like myself and about individuals that have been through the system. So yeah, I think that's why it's important for us to be a part of the conversation.
I appreciate that. Come on, Byron.
Just like Fatima expertly stated and well stated, and you know as well, Ronnie, that if you don't know, you just really don't know. And it's a lot of people who don't understand our experiences, right? So it's important because one, we give firsthand knowledge, of the incarceral system, right? The carceral system. So not only to give firsthand knowledge, but we can come from a place where we can help individuals who doesn't have that experience to better share light on things that's going on and try to change the justice system, whether it's advocates, policymakers, and the community as a whole. So it's very important that individuals that's system impacted have a spot, so to say, in these conversations when dealing with the justice system.
That's a good answer. I would say you got a good answer. I used to speak to, because I spent 47 years incarcerated and trying to dig myself out of the hole that I found myself in. So when we started having relations with advocates that would come in and want to help us, their heart was with us, and we needed them people because they got in spaces that we couldn't get in, and we were blocked out of spaces because the way they looked at us. They would continuously say, "Oh, you pro se people. Oh, you jailhouse this or that. Oh, you convict." And you would hear all these terms that they would keep us in that space or try to, and then make it be where they were right all the time. They had the answer. And I would announce to them, I said, to many of them, I want to arm you with the best information, so when you go in that space that you can get in, so that you can fight for us right. And the stuff that you're coming here and saying to us, that's not what we're living. So each one of you's lived, Fatima and Byron, and even though you spend time in there and I spent time in there, if you listen to my walk and my journey through there, even though we were in what was called prison, you had a different view, and Byron will have a different view. It was a different time, a different place, so we all had all different views, even though it is incarceration. So it's essential for, as ambassadors, for you to come forward and more of us to come forward and hone the stories and get the professionalization of IPP to hone the stories so that we could take it back out there, and when these people get into those spaces of them arenas, then we're more impactful and more powerful to get bills passed, all kind of different things.
I think for me, why it's so important to have formerly incarcerated people and their families and currently incarcerated people be included in this conversation, because the system itself was built and sort of maintained by dehumanization. And so, as much as possible, to tear people, like the humanity of people, away from everybody that's incarcerated. And so I think the most powerful tool to combat that is through bringing back humanity to those stories, and not just talking about prison in this theoretical concept, but actually talking about it human to human, of this is what we are condoning as a society. And I think when you really see the spectrum that formerly incarcerated people come home and do and participate and get involved, or even just go out and start businesses and don't ever think about prison reform again, right? Like those stories counter this evil narrative that the system uses to maintain itself. And I think a lot of organizations understood that inherently, at least around the time that IPP was started. But something that we would see a lot is almost the tokenization of that experience, right? Like bringing on a formerly incarcerated person onto a panel, but then not asking them questions about their experience that really talked about it in an elevated way. And it was more of like trauma voyeurism, or right, like focus, like being able to exploit that experience, but not for its knowledge, more for its grandiosity. And so I think this caused a lot of people to be nervous about sharing their story, because you weren't sure exactly what it was going to be used for when you decided to share it with a group of people. And so that was kind of the goal of the ambassador program, is like not just how you could tell your story, because everybody sort of shows up as natural storytellers, but how can you tell your story to advocate for the things that you want, so that anytime you're on a panel, anytime that you're in a discussion, anytime that you're there, your story is being used to bring about a world you want to see, and not being used to further somebody else's ends. And I think that is really important, especially when you start to examine, like Fatima said, right? Like your story is not just a number. It is actually a very vivid explanation for why this system needs to be changed. But if we let it sort of, the system is designed to pull away that connection to your story, or to pull away that power of your story. And so I think making space for people to share that story, but also making sure that it's intentional and how we bring people to the table, is really, really, really important, if we're going to tackle these problems.
Okay, second question. We got another good question. So, how can learning to refine and tell your story, our stories, change the way you see yourself? So,
I like this question. This is a good question. I think for me personally, I came into the ambassador program with not a lot of confidence. I came into the program with a lot of shame, a lot of guilt, a lot of embarrassment, like all the negatives that you can think of. I feel like I really came into the program with all of them. But then I left the program 8 months later being like, hold on, like I can tell my story, and I can tell it in a way that it can really open up people's eyes and really see how wrong the system is, and how that if it can happen to me, it can happen to anybody. Like, you know what I mean? I get told a lot, and I don't want to say it's offensive, but I always kind of ask the question back of like, you don't look like you've been incarcerated. Well, what does an incarcerated person look like? Because they do look like me. They do look like Byron. They do look like Ronnie. Like they look like us, and we all come from different walks of life. And I feel like our stories are so unique, so different, but yet so unique. And learning to refine your story and being able to tell it in a way where it's powerful for you. Therapy couldn't do that for me. And I've done a lot of therapy, but therapy couldn't do that for me. But being in a room with people that have also experienced this level of trauma truly was another, it was kind of like group therapy in a way, but in a way where it also helped us tell our stories louder, better, more vulnerable, but also with more power. So yeah, it changed completely how I personally view my story. It took all of the shame and embarrassment out, and it really replaced it with like, okay, I made a mistake, but people make mistakes every day, and I shouldn't be held to that one mistake. I should be judged on all of the things I've done since then. So, yeah.
Yeah, that was a good question. For me, refining my story, it made me realize, being part of this ambassadorship, that I'm not defined by my worst act, right? Neither am I defined by the things, other things that I've done or the places I've been. Um, so it has shows me that the things I experienced, the mistakes I've made, it's okay. It has taught me to be confident. It gave me confidence, self respect, because I had a lot of negative, um, self doubts and thoughts about myself. So, self belief about myself. I mean, so it helped me to turn that negative self belief to a positive self thing, right? Um, so yeah, it's just helped me like come in any room I go um, to be confident to say, yeah, you know what, this is what I've done before, but this is what I'm doing now. Um, and anybody can fall victim to a few seconds because that's all it takes. You know what I'm saying, to ruin your life. Well, not just ruin your life, but be in a bad situation. So, for the most part, it's just, I was able to see my growth. Anytime I talk, the more I talk about my past experience, my lived experience, I gain more confidence. Um, and I gain more belief in what I'm doing. And IPP really, the ambassadorship helped me do that.
Thank you. Both of you had great answers to the question. We'll get to Caitlin in 1 second. But I would like to say from what I heard from both of you, and it resonated in my mind, because both of you used the word a couple of times, is the word negative. And IPP, by myself, I believe, and I think it reflects, I think you guys experienced the same thing in that way when IPP showed us their values on paper to say, you're not your worst mistake, and those kind of values they have. You start looking at yourself that, to me, I didn't have those answers for myself. I used to just think that when you look at me, man, you were in jail, you murdered. Yeah, so what? I had that attitude like a defensive with an arm up. So what? You know, instead of being able to, like we learned in there, not about not being a judo fighter and a karate fighter, to turn it around where I could turn around. Yes, I was that, but this, and turn it around. So now I have 47 years of them smashing me with that negativity. So it's almost like a lifetime from a child, me going in there to become an adult. And then I spit through my mouth from my conversation, everything negative, and I have that aggressive tone to it. So by me hearing you both saying the negativity, but how the program let us see each other as Fatima would get up there and tell her story, and Byron get up there and tell her story, and I would tell my story, and the other people engaged in the room to tell our story. And then to be able to put your guard down and listen to for example, Caitlin and Jessica, and to critique you, and Ronaldo, and to critique you and say, better this way, think about it that way. They were already trained to soften the blow so we can tell our story a little bit better. Then I started looking at, I'm not negative no more. Yeah, so now my doorbell goes off in my brain when I'm in these arenas, and somebody tries to place me back in that spot, and it's that negative feeling comes back, and I have to push back with. But now I have the words to say, no, that's not true, and to give them the truth, where before I wouldn't say the truth. I just knew that those people that were speaking negative about us were not in my arena, and that made me close off to them. You ain't in my arena. You ain't from the world I was involved in. So I just blocked them out and wouldn't engage. But now I enjoy engaging with them, I'm trained to say, hey, I think you could look at it a better way.
I don't think I have that much to add. I think everybody really gave really, really awesome answers. Maybe the one perspective that I could offer is that in the training, we really try to highlight people's lived experience as an expertise. I think especially because of all the things that you mentioned about all the rest of society framing it as like a bad thing, or even framing it as like maybe it's something you don't tell these new friends about, or maybe it's something you keep a little bit quiet or under the rug about yourself. Like the amount of skill you have to navigate those systems, right? Social emotional skills to deal with other people, paralegal skills just to get all the paperwork done and everything processed correctly. Like there's so many things that I think you learn when you go through an experience like that, things that you probably never wish you would learn, but it is a damn good education in this really, really messed up system. And so by talking about expertise from that light from the get-go, right, I think it sort of helps frame anytime somebody's bringing something up as like a testimony rather than like a confession.
Okay, so next question. That's a good answer. It says that we're talking about, can hearing one personal story change a perspective more than reading statistics? I want to get, not to block you out, Fatima, but to get Caitlin, women's first. We're going to stick to that philosophy. But I'd like to hear Caitlin's take on this. I have something in my mind I'll explain later on. But so it's, can hearing one personal story change a perspective more than reading statistics? And then why would you say what you're going to say? What have you seen that makes you say that?
Absolutely. I think 100% a personal story can motivate people in a way that a statistic really can't. And I think from a purely ideological or like a conceptual level, it's because the story doesn't have to get trapped up in a logical defense space, right? A story is sort of aimed at your heart, aimed at your humanity to get you to come to a conclusion. I think the other thing that stories are really powerful at doing is breaking down really complex like civics or like legal matters into a way that is really easy to understand. As everybody here knows, there's so many tiny technicalities or little obstacles that happen to somebody when they're going through the system that most of the public has no clue about. And so rather than explaining rather than like explaining the complexity of Illinois moving from a indeterminate sentencing system to a determinate sentencing system, Ronnie can tell his story, right? And like just sort of in him telling his story explains a niche part of our legal history in Illinois that most people have no clue. And we've been in presentations, or we've given different speaking events that we've gone to where you can see somebody that the message might not be 100% landing, especially when I speak, because I usually do the more technical parts of our presentation before we jump into like the narrative part. And so you can see that this person just might not necessarily be buying what we're selling, but by the end, by the time they've heard the story, by the time they really understand the human stakes that are involved in what we're trying to accomplish, it's a 100% transformation. I've seen it happen. I've witnessed it.
So Fatima, how do you analyze this? How do you represent this question like this? How would you say from your point of view?
I have to agree from Caitlin. From the story side of things to the numbers, like numbers can paint a story, but they're not going to tell you somebody's story. It's giving you a broad idea of what the story is. When you sit with, a lot of us are moms like myself. I was a single mom when my crime was committed. I left my daughter at 10 years old when I was incarcerated. The oldest was 10, the youngest was 6 months old. Adding those pieces to my story, they're real because my kids were affected when I left. And I wasn't able to be the mom that I wanted to be for that time period. And I just think that when you add details and when you know what somebody's really going through, it's like reading a book. Like you can visualize it, right? Like we all visualize when we read. Being able to visualize what somebody went through, that will always stick with me more than reading a report that says or that tells me, oh, a number of people or a percentage of this. And like, to me, somebody's story will always outweigh the numbers.
I love it. Come on, Byron.
I agree. With statistics, like Caitlin and Fatima said, that those are just numbers. But when you're able to actually sit in someone's face and talk to them, give them your lived experience, tell your story, um, you're able to connect with that person in an emotional way, right? And they'll be able to empathize with you, uh, whether they went through the same situation, same things before emotionally, but in a different situation, or it just brings out the humanity period within the individual. So yeah, a personal story to me is very powerful. It can change the minds of presidents, the masses, or whoever, as long as they take the time to actually listen with an open mind to the things you're telling them. And I also believe that when you take your story and add those numbers in it, it can make it even more powerful. Because I can say that when it comes to mental health in prison or individual or system impacted individuals who has been released has mental problems or need to deal with address these issues, I can tell them that all the time because they take numbers on that, right? But when I say, listen, when I was incarcerated, I was going through this mentally and emotionally, and I didn't have the type of help that I need. And I feel like this is the reason why most or majority of individuals that's incarcerated do certain things. You know, whether it's being involved in drug addiction or try to commit suicide or whatever, even when it coming home. I feel like me telling you this because I've been through it and showing you individuals that's continue to get go through that recurring door of being incarcerated again and not getting the mental health treatment that they need. And I talked to Fatima about this before about reentry and not getting the essential help that you need, the necessary help you need, as far as reentry and the resources, then it's a problem. And we have plenty of system impacted individuals that can give you stories on the lack thereof. So
Both of you had great answers, and Caitlin's understanding of it is exceptional. When I look at that and I think about statistics versus changing the story, the perspective of their mind, I think about how the negative part of that they look at where we were and what we were, and then political people, they go by them statistics to vote or not vote and to pass a bill or not pass a bill. And since I've been home and trained, and going with IPP to Springfield, when we get in the room with these individuals and you say to them, oh, at 18 years old, I was sent to prison with 200 and 600 years. The person becomes human and the statistic goes out the window and they're like, oh my God, what'd you say? 600 years. And then you tell them, oh, you spent close to 50 years in prison. Oh my God, because they're passing laws and they're doing things that they're not realizing what the other end of it's doing to people. And now they're facing these people who are telling them, man, I was 17 years old and I got 60 or 70 years. Or for a woman to say, I lost my kids. And here they might have 2, 3 kids, and you were away from your kids at 10 years old. Now it hits a personal, humanistic place, in their spirit. And the statistic goes out the window. So that's why I put that question there, that, man, I would pray that we can, and I don't want to use the word, but I use it, bombard Springfield more often and get the time, because they're always in a hurry in there, but get the time to tell them, to have them say more often, oh my God, oh my God. Yeah, after oh my God, join in on this bill with us. And it's the stories that get them people to say, I'm going to sign on that, and this is the influence of that one story. So we all had good answers, and this experience stuff is just from experience to power, I'll say, it's a great topic. So the last question is, and we'll start out with Fatima again, says, has the ambassadorship program brought clarity to your story? And if so, how? You kind of touched on it, but you can go
Can
again
I
and see.
can I go first on this one just because I feel like I'm gonna have the least profound thing to say and I don't want to go last. Okay,
Go
thank you.
ahead.
Thank you. The biggest thing that we hear from people when they come into the ambassador program is my story is not that important. right? Like, I think that's the biggest thing that we hear from people is, yeah, IPP does a lot of really great work, but my story's not Ronnie's story, right? Ronnie's story is pretty phenomenal, and it should be told, and that's why we're glad Ronnie's got that awesome documentary. But I think sometimes people get a bit nervous that because they weren't incarcerated for 5 decades, that their story isn't big enough to be included in this fight, basically. And so what we tried to do in the early weeks of the training is really look at the system from a very broad scope, and sort of how does it get this way? How did it develop in this way? So that anybody that's in the program can sort of understand that their story does contribute to our understanding of the behemoth that is mass incarceration in Illinois. And so, no story is really too small when it comes to shining light on the darkness that exists. They, just by having lived it, just by having experienced it, can now be an expert in for the community, and it really can play a role that we desperately need in confronting all of the different ways that the system can dehumanize somebody.
So beautifully said. I feel like for me, the ambassador program helped me really better understand how my lived experience and what I went through is connected to larger systemic issues, honestly. And I used to never really think like that. It also gave me the confidence to tell my story with purpose and not just something that, oh, this happened to me, but now I use it as a tool to educate others. I use it to influence policy. I advocate in a deeper, more meaningful way for change, I feel, because I'm able to tell my story. And I really feel like it helped me identify like parts of my story where I was unsure, parts of my story where, like Caitlin said, I didn't serve 5 decades like a lot of people have. So I didn't feel like I fit in to this world. But the IPP ambassador program definitely changed all of that for me. And it gave me clarity of like, I do fit in and my story does matter. So yeah.
Yes, the ambassadorship has brought some clarity, and it has taught me, again, it has given me the confidence to go and tell my story and not be ashamed. Just as Fatima mentioned, it has given me purpose, and and knowing that what I'm doing is the right thing to do when I'm going out to advocate, or I'm speaking to other individuals, educating them about mass incarceration, or just the prison system and the injustice that comes with it. Period. Um, it also has given me uh, the ability to try to inspire other system impacted individuals to come and share their stories, because I know that is power and numbers. And the more system impacted individuals we have telling their stories, the more people we'll have on our side. And it also gave me the strength to say, you know what, I'll be the voice for the voiceless, and which we all are. Every system impacted individual, Ronnie, Fatima, Ronaldo, whoever else has been that's out here right now in this fight, we're voices for the voiceless. We've been incarcerated for so long that we never had a voice. So right now is our opportunity. And yes, this program has given me the confidence to go and share my lived experience.
I appreciate that. So as Caitlin was saying, like, to go in a room and think, well, this guy's got 47 years in, he's got a documentary, and people look like I got 20 years in, it's not this or that. So people, I don't know how it gets like that, put me in that stage like that. And sometimes I gotta look like, hey, I'm just a regular person. And it's like you really don't want to have to do 47 years to get where they stuck me at. You know what I mean? So, but my joy and my cohort and the cohorts from now forward is because I've been teaching for a long time in different places. And now I'm like a student, but a teacher. And to see the experience turn into influence. And it's not the day you guys graduated or I graduated that made me happy. That was a formality to me. That was a thing, a process you had to go through. My joy comes in that room when it's that day a month before, 2 months before, when I see your light bulb go off and say, man, I got this. Where 3 months before that, you're no, change the story. No, that ain't gonna fit. No, I don't think so. I can't do it. I'm not gonna make it. But then for the last month or so, man, I got this. I got my stuff. It's right here. So that's when my joy comes that I ain't gotta, we don't have to put so much into this person. He graduated right there. So you guys, to me, graduate before you go in the front of the class to do it. You already graduate. You know, when you understand that you're empowered, you're emboldened, and you start looking at, and then when you look at the final product of both of you to the jobs you hold and the persistency of Byron living so far away, coming back and forth. Every time you look up in a program, this guy's there speaking about the incarcerated world. Every time you look up, Fatima's there speaking for the women and the incarcerated world. So it's from that tree that we have, and we're just a branch, all on that branch in that tree. So that's the clarity that I have when I see the background of it, to see all of the people that participate, and some of them go live their life and go their own way, like Caitlin said, but majority of the people that go to the training in some kind of way, they're still joining in and going, participating and using that experience, and it just shows the empowerness of it that like they did to me. They drew it out of me. I had a different fortake on it. I had a different way of looking at things, and it drew that out of me. Calm down, put in a bullet point, shut it down a little bit, this fine tune it there, and I was able to receive. I'm a hard person to receive information from the life I lived in my life. I'm telling you what to do. You're not telling me. And I had to reverse a lot of stages to now, okay, I could listen to you. Oh, okay, I got it. So that's what comes out of the training. So I'm glad that you participated with us. I'm gonna finish the conclusion part of this, but you can see the influence that you guys are major influencers, So here we go. In a New York Yankee hat, what are we gonna do?
Yeah.
So the conclusion about this program is, just for the audience and people to know, the conclusion, the ambassadorship program is not just about teaching people to speak. It's about helping people discover the power of their voices. The real question here is, will we continue creating space where these voices can be heard? That's what I'm after, keeping the space open for more to come through. So the call to action is, I call for all to engage, all civilians, all people, anybody we can touch, to engage in the Lunch and Learn, because it's a support program that invests in people, and we're teaching people. Every time we help someone transform their story into purpose, we strengthen and create pathways for others to follow, as you see the sequence of what we're doing now. So my closing remarks is, it's sad that a person's story does not end when they leave prison, but sometimes it is where their most important chapter begins. IPP is heavily invested in educating and providing materials designed to support personal growth and empowerment, the emboldened. We can close it with that. Thank you for helping us with this, Fatima and Byron. I'm sure we're going to do something more in the future. I appreciate you guys helping us.